Hi, guys, and we are live today broadcasting on National Stress Awareness Day. And I thought it would be quite a poignant time to actually talk a little bit more about the way stress affects us as entrepreneurs, as people in business, as it's such a sort of a common thing, isn't it, to suffer stress as business owners? Because I think we've probably picked, one of the most stressful things to do, to go in business, to put the weight of expectation on our shoulders. And for a lot of people in business, that can be really tough. And it's something that we don't talk about very often. And I don't think I've really talked about it in great detail, the idea of how to deal with stress and how stress affects us all as entrepreneurs. And for those of you who are budding entrepreneurs who think about going into business, it's something to be aware of. Some people cope better with stress than others. And so I thought I'd share my experience, having been an entrepreneur for over 20 years now. Obviously, I know lots and lots of other entrepreneurs, and I know that it does affect some people very badly. Um, in fact, just looking at statistics as I was doing my research for this presentation today, apparently the Mental Health Foundation says that at some point in the last year, over 74% of us have felt stressed and have felt unable to cope. That's quite a strong sentiment there, unable to cope. Um, it's so common. And, mental health awareness is something that we are getting better at, but still so many of us keep it to ourselves. And I'm always reminded of it this year, or this time of year rather, as yesterday was the anniversary to my best friend who committed suicide 12 years ago now. Obviously suffered heavily with stress to the extent that he took his own life. He's not the only person I know that that's happened to, and I think we've all been affected by suicide and by the effects of stress, if not in ourselves, in people that we know. So it's really important, I think, to discuss this, and I'd just like to share some of my experiences with you guys, and hopefully that can help you to cope with stress, to acknowledge stress, and to see what we can do to combat it. And now I'm just going to talk a little bit about my experience of stress growing up, actually, because my dad, who's actually in the room next door at the moment, just dropping off my daughter from the orthodontist, um, he was an entrepreneur, and I remember vividly when I was a young lad. Um, he used to get up very early, and he used to get nosebleeds, and those nosebleeds were brought on by high blood pressure. And high blood pressure was caused by stress, the stress of being an entrepreneur, the stress of running his own business. And I go out with my dad quite regularly now for a beer and a bit of socialising. We always talk about business. We always talk about my business. We talk about his business past. And even now, he says that he still wakes up in the night having cold sweats, having nightmares about the stress that he felt when he had a business. So this stuff can stay with you for years, guys. In fact, my dad was adamant that I wouldn't go into business in his business because he said it was too stressful. He was in the building trade, and he said it was, too stressful, and he wouldn't wish it on me. And so it's amazing, really, that I ended up becoming an entrepreneur, having witnessed some of the bad effects. I also saw the upside as well. I saw the success. I saw the fun parts of it. So I went into it with my eyes open. And I think, as a rule, I've got off pretty lightly when it comes to the stress of dealing with things, or rather, I appear to deal with the stress in a way that, I certainly don't feel like I can't cope. But in the past, a lot of you all know my story, where I have suffered with panic attacks. The word panic is obviously derived from being stressed. When I used to do presentations. Now, this is all derived from, my mind being worried about what other people think of me, but my logical mind couldn't quite work it out, but my physical symptoms were very obvious. The cold sweats, the dry mouth, and the not being able to talk, and the shakes and all that kind of stuff. Very, very obvious. So I know it's in there with me, the ability to feel, to have these stresses, but I was able to overcome it. I think a lot of that must have had a knock on for how I now cope with the stress of running a business, because it became very aware to me when I overcame the fear of public speaking, the fear of presentations, that there were tools that I could use that could combat the anxiety. I wouldn't say I've got rid of it 100%. I think anybody that suffers with it will always have it there. However, I certainly now logically can deal with it, and the manifestations, the physical manifestations, I can deal with by using certain tools, and I'll talk you through some of those tools because the knock-on of those can work with other stressful times. So just going back to the research that I did, I think there's some interesting stuff here that I read that I've never really thought about, but I do acknowledge it. It says here, small amounts of stress can be useful. And as you become motivated to take action and get tasks done, it can also make you feel alive and excited. And by understanding our stress, we can start making changes for the better. So the fact that you feel stressed if you're running a business can be quite positive if you use it in the right way, because it shows how much you care, shows you want to get the job done, it shows you've got motivation. And if we use it without it letting us get on top of us, then we can get more done. And that's the kind of stress that I'm talking about, that motivates you to work till the early hours of the morning getting a job done, because your anxiety or your stress level is that you want to get it done and out of the way so you feel better the next day, so it's not hanging over you. I'm a victim of that often. I probably did it at least twice last week, where I'll be working to the small hours getting a job done, because that gets it out of the way. I mean, one thing I will say, guys, I remember vividly before I started my own business, I used to feel stressed and feel anxious about the fact that I didn't have my own business, because it was always my dream to have my own business. And I used to feel a lot of stress with the expectation that I had for my employers. So my employers were expecting me to do a job and hit targets and do what I had to do. That actually stressed me out loads more than any stress I've had running my own business. It was almost like a sense of relief for me when I finally started my own business at the age of 29. And I've still to this day would say that it was much more stressful for me having a job than it's ever been, despite having loads of ups and downs in business. Not once did I ever think I would rather have had a job, because I still found it less stressful running my own business than actually working for somebody else. And that's because when I'm an entrepreneur, when I'm running my own business, the buck stops with me. And the anxiety that I felt by having a boss was about their expectations and what I felt I needed to do for them. Now, interestingly, one of the things that stresses me out the most with my current business is the expectations of the Blam partners. So my business, as you know, is the Blam Partnership Program, and we've got a lot of partners that we serve all over the world, and our responsibility at Blam is to deliver to them, help them with their business, to deliver their websites, their apps that they brief into us, to support them, to coach them, to inspire them, to motivate them. A lot of them will be watching this. This goes out to Blam Partners Inner Circle. I've actually done this to a broader audience as well, in the hope that it can help other people. One of the things that stresses me out the most is if I feel I'm not meeting the expectations of the Blam partners, because that's kind of the reason we are here at Blam. It's kind of like it's our core, is helping Blam partners to achieve success. And so any anxiety I feel, the main driver is about delivering that and growing the business and helping partners become more successful. And so one thing that will stress me out is if we get a complaint, or if we get a partner that isn't as being as successful as they could be, or if we're accused of not supporting a partner enough, which happens very rarely. But that's probably one of the reasons why we do over deliver, is because the stress of making sure that we do deliver that, as I said earlier, that small amount of stress can be useful, means that most of the time we get it right. We're not perfect, by the way, guys. I'll tell you that now. But our intention is to always deliver. So making sure that you deliver on what it is that you are stressing over can take away some of that stress. And that for me is, really, really important. This came about for me because I had a business prior to Blam where a lot of people did rely on us. And I went through a scenario where I got a lot of complaints. And that was probably the most stressful time I've ever had in business, where I had people that were accusing me of not delivering on my promises. And that was the worst, the absolute worst. And that's probably why the whole thing about helping Blam partners is so important to me and gives me the most stress, because I remember what it was like when I got it wrong, or when the perception was that I'd got it wrong. And that comes down to, got a little list here of the things that stress us out, or certainly the things that I felt are typical for entrepreneurs. And what are the typical reasons that can help you, or not help you, but give you stress. A key one is money. Now, stress is often derived by money. In a business, I always find that cash flow is the thing that can really stress you out if you're not getting your money in. So if people aren't paying you, especially if you've got your own mortgage to pay, salaries to pay, or as your business grows, your rent and your tax and all that kind of stuff. And if cash flow is tight, that can be really stressful. And that's something that all businesses face, big and small. I remember in the past, guys, when I ran my agency, getting money in was the most difficult thing. One of the reasons I transitioned to the Blam model is because cash flow's nowhere near the problem it used to be. When I used to work with corporate clients, they were bad payers. Some of them used to take over 100 days to pay me. I remember one time when I had to pay the salaries for all my team, and it was a good sized team, on my credit card. I had to pay the salary. I got in trouble with the bank for that. You're not supposed to do that. So I basically had a credit card machine. I took my own personal credit card, and I took money off my own personal credit card to pay money into the bank so that I could pay the wages. That was stressful. I had a call off the bank, so you're not allowed to do that. I didn't know I wasn't allowed to do that. If you do that again, we're going to close you down. That was stressful. And it wasn't because the business wasn't doing well. It's because people weren't paying the money that I was owed, and I had salaries to pay. So cash flow, money is a big, big stress. Worried about what other people think of you. I know this is a massive one, especially when I'm talking to Blam partners. Imposter syndrome. David Rahman talks about this a lot. Do you stress out because you're worried people think, this is the one that probably affects me most, or worry about the way Blam partners perceive Blam and me and the team? Are you worried about the way people are perceiving you? Are you looking professional enough? Are you worried about looking like a fool, or like you don't know what you're talking about in front of clients, or if you might be doing a presentation, or it might be to prospects? Is that something that stresses you out? That makes you feel worried? Are you worried about being good enough? About actually feeling like you're up to the task? Particularly in business, we get this a lot. It's a bit of imposter syndrome again. People are saying, am I really good enough to do this? Is it that I'm not good enough to be able to make this a success? I don't think there's any entrepreneur that hasn't had that go through their head at some point. Am I really going to be able to do this? And these are the common ones that crop up a lot as entrepreneurs. And certainly in my early career, I remember going through all of those. And what I found out was, and I think it was as a result of curing my fear of public speaking, I found out that stresses in life, there are ways of actually dealing with it which can really, really help. They can make a big, big difference. And any bland partners will know that I bang on about some of these quite often. They're there not to take the stress away completely, but to give you a tool so the stress doesn't get too bad. Because as I've said, a certain amount of stress can actually be useful. So let's go through some of these tools, and you'll recognize some of these guys because the one big one doesn't just deal with stress, it deals with so many things in life. And I promise you, if you can get this one thing nailed down, it's going to sort out a lot of stuff on your entrepreneurial journey. And it's so much harder than you think. And this one thing is a morning routine. Getting a morning routine nailed down so that you wake up at a good time, decent time of the morning. I wake up at 7. Some people wake up much earlier, but because I end up going to bed quite late, sometimes 7 o'clock's my time. And I've got a strict regime that I go through. I say strict, actually, it's not that strict because there's a series of events can vary, but I make sure I get them all done. So I make sure, obviously, you've got to brush your teeth, you've got to do your ablutions. And I've recently added a tongue scraper into my routine because my wife bought me. She said, you've got to do that when you wake up, get rid of the toxins. So I've done that. Then I take all my vitamins, and I drink a pint of water. Then I do my exercise, different routine for each day of the week. Sometimes I'll go to the gym, sometimes I use the gym at home. Then when I finish my exercise, whilst I'm doing my exercise, I do the odd video, I'll do the odd text message, I do a bit of work in between sets. I do weights, I don't do running or any of that nonsense. I do like a good walk, but that's a different time of day. This is morning routine. Then I make myself a nice cup of coffee, and I grind the beans myself, and I get all that sorted. It gets me excited. At the same time, I'm listening to some feel good music. By the way, when I was doing my workout, I was listening to motivational or educational stuff. I like a bit of Grant Cardone, or it might be a bit of Zig Ziglar, something that gets me in a good mood. And whilst I'm making my coffee, I'm listening to feel good music. I'd usually just go onto, I've got a few goes tos, go onto YouTube, type in feel good music, and you'll get some uplifting, upbeat music go through. Then, whilst I'm drinking my coffee, I'll write my affirmations down. These are my goals that I want to achieve. Now, some people do meditation. Some people have affirmations. Oh, that's it. When I have a shower, I usually do my morning meeting then about 9 o'clock, which is the team meeting. Then I go and have a shower. And whilst I'm having a shower, I play my affirmations on the app ThinkUp. And I always have a cold shower at the end. That's my routine most mornings, even weekends. In the weekends, I do drag out the bit in between instead of the morning meeting. I've got a series of other stuff that I do. But I've got to tell you, just telling you about this stuff, guys, I feel good. I know that morning routine is a medicine for me. It keeps me in a great, gets me started for the day. I love it. Absolutely. I cannot recommend it enough, guys. And I think it deals with a good 80% of the stress that you're going to be dealing with, and any of the stress, the things that are happening in your life. This is going to help. Now, don't get me wrong, guys. I know life's going to get in the way. There's other things in your life that are going to cause you stress with your family, friends, and all the variables that you've got no control over. I understand that. But we have to be consistent with the morning routine regardless, because we've got to look after this. We can only influence this. And if we want to help others, we've got to be right up here first. And getting it right first thing in the morning, for me, it's absolutely key. So other things that I've got on here that really help. I talked about meditation. Sometimes if I'm flagging a bit during the mid-afternoon, I'll either have a power nap, and a power nap can be anything from 10 to 20 minutes. Set my alarm, power nap. I'm lucky enough to be able to just go to sleep if I need to. And sometimes I need that, particularly if I haven't had enough sleep the night before. Getting enough sleep is also really important. 7 to 8 hours has to be. If you get less than that, then that's where power naps come in. Happens to me quite often. Socializing, making sure you do socialize. And just taking the time to spend time with friends and family is important. You can diarize it, you can make it happen. And then this is a big one, talking to people. I mean, how often do we actually really sit down and talk about how stressed we are? Not very often. We don't like to admit it. And when you talk about it, it's so, so key. I know this better than anybody with some of the experiences that I've had with people. When people open up and they talk about the stresses, it gets better. It helps. I'm not saying it cures it. I'm saying it helps, because they say a problem solved, a problem shared is a problem solved. And this is why, David Rahman's awesome at this. Having a chat with David Rahman can really get your head on straight. Or talking to somebody you trust, your mentor. Maybe it's somebody in your close circle. Maybe, you've got a coach. Maybe it's your partner. But sharing your stress, letting people know when you're feeling stressed and articulating it, not in an aggressive way or in a moany or a complaining way, in a way that just actually, you don't have to try and fix it. Just listen to me. And that, I think, can be a huge, huge tonic, because I guarantee everybody that's listening to this, if you're in business, you're going to have some of these stresses. You're going to have them. I actually do this on a regular basis with my wife on a Sunday morning. And I basically just, do all the talking. And here she is. I'm actually live at the moment, just talking about our Sunday morning chats.
Oh, and all the tea that I bring.
Yeah, and that is another one that is a great stress relief. A nice cup of tea. A nice cup of tea. So these routines and these tools, I think, are really, really important to helping you. Now, if you are feeling super stressed and you're feeling like you can't cope, it is absolutely vital that you let people know. 74% of people this year have felt like that. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing unusual about it. This is pretty much the whole planet goes through this at some point. But it is your responsibility to try and find a way of making you feel better. Doesn't mean you're going to cure what's causing the stress. It's just going to give it more perspective. Reach out and talk to somebody. If any Bland partners feel like they need to talk to me about stress, I am more than happy. All you've got to do is send me a WhatsApp, book in. I've seen a lot of this kind of stuff, and I've got the t-shirt, and I'm more than happy to help you listen. Maybe I'll be able to, offer some advice. Maybe just listening will be enough. David Rahman is also always there to support us. And he'll be more than happy to help you if you want to reach out to him at the Mind Coach. It's mind.coach is David Rahman. He's a great advocate for Bland partners. Or if you're not a Bland partner, if you're watching one or the other, you can reach out to him. But talking about stress, I think, is really, really key. And we don't do it enough. I'm just going to quickly check the messages. Somebody's got an in-house psychologist. I can't see who that is, but I'm wondering whether that might be one of my team. And then we've got another one. I appreciate that. Thank you. Again, can't see who it is. They're not logged in. And somebody, I'll reiterate, it is a very important subject, and we don't talk about it enough. I don't talk about it enough. I know that, because it's a bit taboo. And I think particularly people from my generation are even worse than perhaps the younger generation, where we bottle things up. So I'm lucky enough to surround myself with people, who I trust. I've got a lot of good entrepreneur friends, people like David as well, who I spoke to this morning. Is an absolute legend. He really helps with stuff like this. And I think I'm wise enough to know that I do have to use tools to fix it, or to help it. You don't fix it. It's always there. You need that little bit of stress. It's always there. But we do need to acknowledge that we mustn't keep it all bottled up. So guys, if you need me to help, if I'm the right person, reach out. No judgment here. That's my job. If you're a Bland partner, get in touch with me if you want to have a chat about this subject. Or if you want to talk to somebody else on the team. As I said, my main cause of anxiety is making sure that we're supported Bland partners enough. And there's a case in point. We want to bend over backwards for you guys. It's really, really important to us. Your success is our success. So, enough said. For those of you that aren't experiencing stress, well done with coping with it. But don't forget, if it does crop up on you, don't bottle it up. Talk about it. And morning routine, gotta love it. One last thing, again, Blam Partners, you'll find this in your resources. Abby, who's just born with a T, practices TFT, thought field therapy. There's another similar therapy called EFT, emotional freedom technique. These two things are all about using acupuncture points to tap, to release energy, to help you with different things. When I was suffering from panic attacks, using TFT, thought field therapy, by tapping certain parts of my face, under my arm and on my collarbone in a don't ask me how it works. It's Chinese medicine. It works. It calms you down. And thought field therapy, you don't really need to understand why. You just need to trust it. It is awesome. And I used to do it before I would go on stage or before I'd do a presentation. And I've used it for lots of people, particularly when I've run events where I've got people that are doing speaking that might be new to speaking. I've taught them some of these techniques and they can't explain it, but it calms them down. So TFT, thought field therapy, look it up if you're a Blam partner in the Blam inner circle. If anybody wants to give me drop me a WhatsApp to ask about it, it is awesome. It really does sort you out. I still do it now. It's not just for stress, by the way. You can do it for all sorts of different things. There's a great one, quick tip, completely separate. If you can't, sometimes you think, I can't remember the name of something or the name of somebody. Just tap there and think about the name. You can't. It's amazing how many times when you do that, it will come to you. Weird. Thought field therapy. I'll leave you with that nugget. Have a fantastic rest of the week, guys. Talk about your stress. Stay happy. Have fun. Let's do this entrepreneur thing, guys. Take care. See you soon.